Hello and welcome to Back of the Net and Beyond, where today I'm going to be speaking to former Watford, Burnley and Coventry City former footballer, Marvin Sordell. How you doing, Marvin? You okay?
Yeah, good, thanks. And you?
All good. And how's life treating you at the moment?
Good. I'm very, very busy at the moment. I barely get time to myself or even really time to think. So it's hectic at the moment, but that's always a positive thing because it means that I'm keeping busy with things and there are opportunities.
Definitely. And we'll touch on that 100%. So in terms of day-to-day life, what are you doing at the moment to keep yourself occupied?
Well, I get up, exercise, because and then just from there, it's just cracking on with my day in terms of running a business. So, I co-founded a production company last year, and I completely run everything on the business side. So, all the business development, all the onboarding, all trying to attain new clients, all the admin, literally all the from all the fun conversations to all the boring stuff. I do, probably 98% of it. So it's a lot of work because I'm we're a new company, and I would say that we're an exciting, talented company, but see, very young. So it's just about selling our talent really, as opposed to our experience. So I'm having to find really I'm just having to swerve obstacles all the time and find ways to really get things over the line, really.
And you mentioned obviously it's a production company, so do you want to kind of delve into like more detail in terms of what that's about?
So yeah, it's a production company that essentially we make video content, of all types. So we started off, the three of us who co-founded the company, we're just doing bits and bobs together, personal projects. So I'd written a couple of things for short films that we turned into short films. My co-founder William, he's a singer-songwriter as well, and he'd produced and written and sang a lot of his own music and created some incredible music videos as well. And our third co-founder, Maxwell, he's a videographer by trade. So we were doing a lot of things together, and we're passionate about telling stories. That's probably our strongest point, is creating and trying to make it look as good as possible. And we found that there is a market for it. And so we thought, we have a niche in the sense that we've got an extreme knowledge and background in the football industry, because myself and William, both football players. So we've got a very strong niche in the sense that we can attack such a big and profitable industry from the inside outwards, as opposed to trying to get to it from the outside. And that is what probably stands us instead when moving forward. It's probably propelled us quite quickly down the line to do some of the stuff we've done, because of the connections we have, the ability we have to push things forward, more so from the talent side of things as well.
Yeah, that sounds really exciting, and it sounds like you've got a good team and a talented team at that as well. It sounds like you're all bringing different qualities to the group, and I'm assuming that goes well, obviously going forward and working with each other anyway.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, we're quite lucky in the sense that between the three of us, we can cover pretty much most bases. So when we're creating different types of content, when we need, as an example, if we're doing a shoot that's an advert, or if we're doing an interview, if we're doing something creative, we have the talent between the three of us. Specifically as co-founders, we have a couple of other people that work with us as well. But between the three of us, we're able to create a concept, deliver it, budget it, shoot it, edit it, add music to it. So we're quite unique in the sense of, as a production company, we everything that we do is in the house, and we've got a very small team.
Sounds really cool, and obviously, for the average layman out there who probably doesn't know who you are, Marvin was a top footballer, and obviously played for some amazing teams, and obviously we'll touch on that a bit later on as well, because I want to delve into your career. But from going to football to doing something that you're doing now in the production industry, it's completely different, two separate entities entirely. So how did you find that transition process for you, leaving sport, something that you kind of know you can get up and just, you kind of, it's innate in you because you've been doing it for many years from a young age, and obviously you got to a professional level and sustained that for a period of time, to then go into something that is kind of, although you've got the skills for it, you've never delved into that industry before. So what transferable skills, or sorry, what was the transition process like for you?
For me, it was quite smooth because I decided to walk away from football. It wasn't the case. I was forced to retiring, or I was out of contract or something. I had a year left on my contract, and I decided that I wanted to retire, and so I was emotionally prepared for that. I think that's the biggest thing, as opposed to being, physically in a place where you can just walk into a job. I think most people need to be emotionally in a place where they're satisfied, and most aren't. Most aren't satisfied with the fact that they're being told that that's it. So I think for me, it was a very different scenario, because I'd made the decision, like almost a year in advance, quite a few months in advance. I'd made a decision that I'm probably going to retire, and it was concrete. Like months before that, I did actually eventually do so. So the process of the transition was quite smooth in the sense as well, because I've been doing stuff in this space since 2017, and that doesn't mean I don't know a lot about this industry, and as I said, I'm very inexperienced, and I haven't been doing this for a long time, and I didn't know how this was going to work. I didn't know if it was going to work, but I just knew that I have some time, I have contacts, I know how to leverage it, I know how to have conversations with people. I'm not afraid to ask questions. And I gave myself a bit of I prepared myself beforehand, because I knew I was going to retire. I prepared myself financially beforehand, so I gave myself a bit of time and a bit of leeway to say, right, I can try and get this off the ground in different places, and I don't have to worry too much about phone things. And I think the biggest thing when it comes to the transition period as well, because I'd already been working in this space and creating and telling stories. As I was coming up to the end of my career, I was starting to be known as someone that was slightly different towards as opposed to the normal football player. I'd had a column at 442 at this point. I'd been doing quite a few interviews and stuff on daytime television, so I was on like Victoria, Derbyshire, and a couple of other bits and bobs, as opposed to the normal route of just doing radio and that kind of, and commentary and that kind of thing. So I was already kind of moving into that space beforehand, because of just the way I'd started to position myself, because I that where I was heading, I was going to be retiring. So I thought, I need to position myself now, so that when I retire, it's not like, okay, he's a footballer, now he's this. It's like, well, while he's a footballer, he's still this, and it's a smooth transition. It's like, I'm a footballer and a writer, I'm a poet and a filmmaker, and a public speaker. And as my football runs out, these are getting, they just carry on picking up. So it was an actual transition, as opposed to stop. Just stop playing football and start picking up something else. There was a smooth transition.
It sounds pretty similar to my experience. I mean, when I speak to people, obviously I always say there's no right or wrong in terms of how you transition out of sport. Obviously everyone's got different characteristics, different contacts, obviously different personality traits. And my transition was pretty seamless, for the simple fact that I had the mindset that I was going to retire, and it was on my own terms, to the point where I didn't even tell family members apart from my wife. So no one really knew. So from that perspective, I'd probably say it was easier because I had that mindset way before it came to that point, and also because I didn't experience rejection when it came to applying for another job. And I didn't have to retire through injury or anything like that, which obviously that can happen to people. So I can see why it can be quite difficult for people from that perspective. Obviously the financial aspects as well. So for me, it was a case of I'll finish football, so I'll finish playing, and then I've been offered a job where I've got a sustainable income coming in. So I didn't really have to be concerned about where my next salary is going to be coming from. So that did help me a lot. And it seems like obviously similar type of scenario for yourself. In terms of your retirement, so you've mentioned obviously you were planning to a certain extent whilst you were still playing, and then obviously you eased your way out of football into what you're doing now, as well as other arms within that. What was the reason for retirement? Was there like a trigger point where you thought, okay, that's it now, I'm done? Or was it a case of I've kind of had enough and now I want to kind of move into another field? Was there a moment in that sense for you?
Yeah, I wouldn't say there was a specific moment, because there were several moments throughout my career that kind of, you know, added up, and I got to a point where I just thought, I don't need to do this anymore. And not I don't need to, I don't have to do this anymore. I can be more. I don't have to limit myself as a person. And it just didn't make me happy anymore. And that was ultimately the main thing, is that, you know, I'd struggled with mental health issues throughout my career, and I tried a lot of different things and changed a lot of different things, but ultimately I still wasn't happy. And I think that the biggest thing was that, you know, what I sort of found was a common denominator was the fact that I was still playing football professionally, and I love to play football, and that's because, you know, that's been my passion and dream since I was a kid. But, you know, having it as a hobby as opposed to having it as a job are two completely different things. And I wanted to continue maintaining my love for football, and that's one of that you know, that's another reason why I walked away from the game, because I still wanted to love the game. Because if I stayed, I know I would have ended up despising it.
We touched on mental health there, and obviously mental health now is more prevalent than it was probably 10, 15 years ago. Information is more readily available. It's not so frowned upon when someone opens up about their mental health, especially in sport as well. So you recently appeared on a TV show, and I actually watched it and I really enjoyed it. It was good content. Do you want to touch on kind of your mental health and obviously what you're experiencing during football?
Yeah, I mean, I've spoken about this, you know, very often and very publicly. You know, I struggled with depression quite badly when I was, you know, for several years, and that led to a suicide attempt. And, you know, I think the biggest thing for me, the biggest thing that I found as a challenge was trying to understand it and understand why I felt like that. And I think as I got further down the line and looked at ways to manage it, because I don't think you can cure depression. I think you can manage it and understand it. I got further down the line. I grew to understand myself a lot better. I developed and grew as a human being. You know, I kind of let go of the ego and allowed myself to be vulnerable. I think that's an important thing, because being vulnerable means that, you know, being honest means that you have to be vulnerable, and being vulnerable means that you allow people to see you for who you are. And I wasn't happy with the way I was portraying myself, because that's what my ego was. My ego was portraying myself as somebody who didn't care, because it was just a defense mechanism, because I was so, you know, in at the time, but beneath that surface of ego, it was somebody who felt very fragile and broken. And so that journey of just self-development really just helped me to understand myself, and it did lead me to where I am today, because it allowed me to look towards other outlets and other things that made me grow as a person outwards as opposed to just growing down a straight line, just maintaining that as a football player. I wanted to grow out as a, you know, as a writer, as a speaker, as a filmmaker, as a pilot. I was just doing all these different things really just to develop myself really.
That's a great insight. In terms of the TV show, I did mention that you appeared on that recently. Really enjoyed it, and there were some big names on the show. And obviously, from the outside looking in, when you see these people on the TV, people who aren't maybe privy or in contact with sports people, high profile ones, they may not be aware of what they're going through on their day-to-day lives with their families, on and off the pitch, whatever it may be. And as I mentioned, there were some big names on the show, Prince William obviously being one of them. So what was it like to work with Prince William on the show?
It was, to be honest, I didn't really think that much of it at the time because it was just, at the time I saw it, it was just a conversation between two people who had very similar stories, you know, from very different backgrounds, but had two quite similar stories in you know, emotionally. And obviously being a dad as well was just, it was a good opportunity to ask him about, you know, is it the same? You know, do these emotions happen to all men, or was it just me? And that's the thing with mental health as well. You know, you always think it's just you're the single person in the world that feels like that. And until you have that conversation, you start to have that conversation on a wider scale, you realize that it's a lot more common than you ever realized.
That's massive. In terms of your personality, obviously, I've seen a few different shows and clips here and there, and kind of, I'm on LinkedIn, so I kind of read people's profiles and things, and it seems like you've got like an eclectic personality, and it seems like you're involved in a lot of things. Aside from the production company, that sounds really exciting. You've mentioned there really briefly that you did a lot of other things, and one of them was like a pilot. So just touch on that, because that's very rare again to hear someone kind of leave sport, especially football, and then become a pilot and so on. So just touch on that.
But that was when I was it's quite a few. I haven't flown for years now. And initially I got a gift voucher for a flying lesson for Christmas from my mum, and I went and I did it and just fell in love with it.
Really?
And I asked the instructor after the lesson, is it, you know, what do you have to do to become a pilot? So I just thought, wow, this is amazing, and it's very different and just something I could enjoy doing. And he just said, if you want to get your private license, it's, you know, X amount of hours, you just need the equipment, you do your lessons, do 9 exams. And I thought, great, I'm going to start then. And I did, because I just thought, well, why not? And you know, I did a couple of lessons initially when I was first at Charlton, and then I moved. Obviously, went up to Burnley. I didn't do any lessons there, but it's when I moved down to play for Coventry. That's where I did the bulk of my lessons, because I at that point the Coventry training ground was literally around the corner from Coventry Airport.
So I'm from Leamington, so I know where it is.
So I used to finish training and then just have my lessons after training.
Nice.
Yeah. But
what's it like being in the air then? Because I can imagine it being quite like nerve-wracking, especially for the first couple of like lessons as well.
No, I mean, you're in there with an instructor. I mean, it's a very small plane, so what I think is the most amazing part is that you get to feel and see everything when you're up there. You know, every tiny bump you feel. You know, when you're taking off, you feel you feel everything, and you see everything as well, because it's so small. You know, you can literally turn around and you look down and you can see the floor, and you look forward and you can just see out, and it's so incredible. You know, just to be in control in that environment, and at the same time it's just so peaceful.
Sounds amazing. In terms of your career, obviously when you're playing football, you had a great career and you played in the Premier League for a period of time, and played some massive clubs as well. And I obviously mentioned those at the start of the show. What, in terms of kind of your career, obviously, as I mentioned, you've sustained a career and whatever else, and you've managed to get to the higher echelons of football. What was it like playing for England in the 21s? And obviously, you played for Great Britain, so you represented Great Britain at the Olympics. So what was it like? How did you find it? Did you fit into the squad well? What was squad dynamics and just playing in general for those teams and representing the country?
Yeah, it was amazing, and it's an achievement that I look back and with a lot of pride, because as a kid, growing up, that's the dream, to play for your country, and getting called up for the first time was as special as getting called up for the last time, and that's now a memory that I'll have with me forever. I played with some unbelievable players for the under-20s, under-21s, and for Team GB. We had some great players who've gone on to play at the very highest level. So, to say I was able to rub shoulders with some of the best players, and of course at the Olympics we played against some of the best players as well. So, to say I've come up with some of the best, played with and come up against some of the best players in world football is incredible.
It's a massive achievement, massive achievement. Obviously, so we've mentioned about obviously what you're doing now, and the reason why I'm doing the show, if people aren't aware, is basically to make people, sports people, industry leaders, people who run organisations, athletes, just make them aware that sports people, athletes do have transferable skills which are suited not only to sport and the field that they're in, but also to industries outside of sport. And I don't think many people are aware of it, whether it be athletes or organisations or industry leaders. So my message is obviously just to make people aware that the transition can be done. Obviously, you need to be willing and have the gumption to do it, and it's not easy, just because naturally, especially for me, when I was playing football, I was immersed in football. I didn't really think about what I wanted to do afterwards. I knew potentially that I was going to have to work, and I had that mindset anyway, which aided my transition. And I believe that made it a lot easier for me. I was never really in that football bubble. I was never a household name. Sometimes I think if you're a household name, to transition out of your sport to go and do something completely different, sometimes that can be harder and maybe frowned upon from people who don't know you for whatever reason. And so, from your perspective, what transferable skills did you take from playing football for all those years into doing what you're doing now and all the other things that you're involved in?
I think that the biggest, I'd say 3 things, and they're probably the 3 most common things across all football players. The ability and desire to learn very quickly. That's something that all football players have, because they have to have it to become a professional. Hunger, really, as well. I think just being able to just wake up and just go, that hunger is it's instilled in us. We have football players have almost unbreakable characters at times, because it's what it takes to get to being a professional and staying a professional. We all know how difficult it is to, it's funny because a lot of people frown upon the fact that some players might play in League One, League Two for 15 years. They don't realize how difficult it is to do that. It's to have a career at, having longevity in a football career is incredible. And the mentality it takes to have that is, unbelievable. And the third one is adaptability. That's what football players probably do better than most people in the world, is adapt, because you adapt to new people, new environments, new situations every day. Everything changes all the time in football, whether it's managers, personnel, clubs, treatment. Everything changes very quickly, and you have to adapt. And that's just something that we're accustomed to. And that, for if you think of a person who can learn quickly, can adapt quickly, and has a very strong mentality, that's valuable to any business.
Definitely. And in terms of, I mentioned industries and organisations outside of sport. Do you believe that more can be done in terms of making those companies, people, industry leaders, whatever it may be, aware of the skills that athletes have? Because I speak to a lot of people, and it depends on your circumstances, and like I said, there's no right or wrong. But I've spoken to many athletes in the past, and a lot of them seem to think that they need to have more help from within sport to make the transition outside.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that? Me personally, I think more needs to be done from both sides. So from an educational point of view, and also more needs to be done from a player point of view. So you need to have it in yourself in terms of wanting to make the transition. Because nothing's going to be given to you, especially when you leave sport. We're used to playing and having kit given to you and everything else just done for you as an athlete. But as soon as you leave that kind of regimented lifestyle, it's completely different, and you kind of left to fend for yourself. And if you haven't got the know-how to navigate that, then that's where kind of issues can arise. Yeah. So, what are your thoughts in terms of like more help?
I mean, on that, I think the gap needs to be bridged. I think probably from both ends, but probably more so from the sports end. As you know, I've set up this platform. Well, at the moment, it's just an Instagram page and a WhatsApp group. But I will be growing it into a platform, a networking platform, and a guide essentially. Yeah. To help players, and I think the biggest thing is confidence, because the players don't have the confidence on the majority don't have the confidence that they're going to go out into the real world and succeed. They don't believe that they're going to, because they think that they need degrees and qualifications and years of experience, when that isn't always the case. You know, in many cases, it's very possible to learn on the job. It's very possible to go into another industry and use the skills that you have to become successful in a different industry. It's just having the belief and understanding that is possible, and that's something that I want to give to players, really, because it's something that I've experienced and something that I've learned. Yeah. Because I'm not an expert in this area, but we're moving very quickly, just purely because of the fact that I ask questions and I learn very quickly. As I said, that's the trait that runs through the industry of football, and that's given me a lot of the tools that I need to become successful. So if I can then use those tools to then say, right, here are the tools, this is what you need to do to other players, and continuously do that, then I think we'll see a lot more smoother transitions out of the game.
Definitely. It's one of the main reasons why I started the podcast, not only to speak to people like yourself and obviously hear your story, but just it's because I feel passionate about the message. And like I said, a lot more can be done. In terms of ways to go about that there's kind of many things being thrown about, but I mean, I haven't got the answers. But I believe the podcast will assist people going forward, just because people generally don't have contact with people like yourself. They're not going to bump into you and have the options to maybe ask, or like you said, they may be scared. So not everyone's like me. I'll happily go and ask random people information, because if you don't ask, I always say the answer is going to be no. So it's one of those situations where I just thought, let me see how this podcast goes, and luckily for me, it's been going okay. I mean, I'm only a month in, so I'll continue doing it, and obviously I want to get my message across to many people as possible, across as many platforms as possible as well. Obviously, we touched on mental health earlier on. Have you got a message or any advice that you may be able to give someone who could be listening and they may be struggling for mental health and haven't maybe found a way to convey how they're feeling to someone?
I mean, the biggest thing is to talk, so the communication is the number one when it comes to that, because when you start offloading these issues, it makes you feel better. It bridges the gap. It gets people to understand where you're at and why you feel different ways and different moments. If you can't do that, I mean, what I did, because I wasn't able to talk, I couldn't communicate. That was my biggest problem. And what I did was write. I wrote. At that point, I was writing a lot of poetry, and I wrote all of my experiences, my feelings in poems, and collated it and sent it to all my family and friends, all my closest family and friends. And I said, can you just read this and we can speak after? And I don't have to be there with you. I just want you to read this. And that helped, you know, that completely changed the dynamic of a lot of my relationships.
Well, that's really good. That's good advice. And hopefully if anyone's listening, I mean, I always say with anything like this, if you can touch one person, then it's job done, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
So appreciate the message. And like I said, appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on.
No worries.
Before we go, just want you to let people know the name of the company and obviously where we can find you.
Production company?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're 180 Productions.
Okay.
I mean, you can find me on social. My social is just at Marvin Sordell across, you know, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. I have, but I don't really use. And our company's name is in my, you know, in all my bios. It's This Is 180. That's our company handle. And thisis180.com is our website, but it's This Is 180, spelled with one E.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Brilliant. Like I said, appreciate your time. I enjoyed speaking to you. Hopefully we'll speak a lot more going forward. Big thing is networking. Obviously we touched on that a lot in the WhatsApp group and stuff like that. So I can see that growing as well. Like I said, keep in touch and good luck, stay positive, and we'll speak soon.
Cheers. Nice one.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.